Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we explore our new spin-out filters and separators. During the presentation, since they are both spin-out filters, I will just be referring to them as filters and separators. My name is Braidlin McEwen, and I'm the social media and content coordinator here at Boshart Industries. Sitting around the table with me is our panel of experts: Will Bender, Steve Hudson, and Paul Erb. You may hear them chime in throughout the presentation. Feel free during the presentation to type out any questions that you have. We will do our best to answer all questions after the presentation. If you want to type out a question, you should see a sidebar on the right-hand side of your screen. If you click on the top button, which looks like an arrow in a box, it will open a little menu with a question box, which you can type your questions and we will be able to see them. Please note the slide number if you're referencing a specific slide. The numbers will be displayed on the bottom left of the slide.
First, we will go over exactly what these filters are, why you would want them, and how they work. We will then take a look at the applications where they work best and the best installation practices. Then on to designs and features, where we will cover the physical differences of our filters compared to those on the market. To end off the presentation, we will take a look at some of the testing procedures that QA performs. Let's get started. Spin-out filters and separators are designed to remove large amounts of sand and sediment from your water. The picture on the left is showing the filter element, and the picture on the right is showing the separator element. They both use centrifugal force to separate the sediment from the water, hence why they are both spin-out filters. There is only one fundamental difference between the two. The difference is the separators have a larger sediment holding capacity, as you can see in the picture. As you can see by these pictures, the 1-inch separator housing is a little different compared to the 1.5" and 2-inch. Both the 1-inch filter and separator housings require the same element. The bowl is just extended on the separator. For the 1.5" and 2-inch units, the same bowl is used for both the filter and separators, but the filter is shorter on the separator element to create a larger holding area beneath the filter. We will now take a look at the applications and installations of these filters. These filters are mainly used in the water well industry and are also big in the agricultural sector, mostly in the poultry industry. They also work really well in industrial, commercial, and irrigation environments, and as pre-filtration for finishing filters. The filters are designed for sediment removal, making them perfect as a pre-filter for other filters that clog due to heavy sediment. To remove a large amount of sediment, the filters or separators should be used before a 10 or 20 micron sediment cartridge filter in series. When we say in series, that refers to the water going through the pre-filter first, then passing through the sediment cartridge. Later in the presentation, we will go over where you would set up the filters parallel to each other. Traditional sediment filters, like string wound, pleated, or spun, are excellent for filtering out large amounts of sand and particulate, but they will clog quickly and will need to be changed more frequently than 6 months. Needing to change a filter more frequently is not only a waste of time, but also a waste of money. Although most of the sediment is removed from centrifugal force, there will still be small particulate that stays in the water and needs to get filtered from the filter element screen. Filter and separator screens are sized by a mesh number. The mesh number represents how fine the particulate is that it can block. The larger the number, the finer the particulate stops. For example, a 1000 mesh will be able to filter out particulate as small as 15 microns, as you can see in the chart. To choose a mesh size, you need to know what is in the water. The solution to frequent filter changes is to add a filter or separator before the cartridge filter. They make a good team, as the filter or separator will remove most of the sediment entirely, and the traditional cartridge will catch the very fine particulate that the filter or separator did not catch. By adding a pre-filter, you will prolong the lifespan of the traditional cartridge, and it will last the entire 6 months until it needs to be changed due to bacteria buildup. Pre-filters pay for themselves by extending the life of the finishing filter. The reason the filters and separators can remove so much sediment is because if they are sized correctly, the sediment won't actually touch the filter element. The centrifugal force pushes the sediment to the outside, and it will drift down through the two holes in the filter element, and then it will rest in the chamber at the bottom of the bowl. As you can see in the picture, the particulate is resting at the bottom of the chamber. You can then purge the sediment as much as you need to. Here is a quick video to show how the centrifugal force actually works. As you can see, there are arrows on the filter head to indicate the direction of flow. The water is forced to swirl around the bowl, and the heavier sediment will be pushed to the outside and will eventually drift down into the chamber. Some lighter sediment might take some time to drift to the bottom. Now here's a quick video to show an example of purging. The filter will need to be purged after it's been filtering and collecting sediment. To purge the filter, simply open the ball valve attached to the drain port. The system's pressure will flush away the contents of the filter bowl through the drain port. Be sure that there is an air gap between the filter and wherever the filter drains into. The air gap eliminates any risk of back siphoning dirty water into the system. Yes, they can be used as standalone filters. If silt needs to be filtered and no smaller particulate needs filtering, you could either use the cartridge style or the filter style. If the particulate is coarse with no smaller sediment, the filters can be used on their own. As we saw in the mesh size chart, traditional cartridge filters have a range of 1 to 50 microns, whereas the filters and separators have a range of 15 to 711 microns. The filters work well on sediment, but they should not be used for applications like algae or iron that could potentially clog the element. Filters and separators are typically installed at the point of entry near the pressure tank. They should at least be placed before any appliances, such as softeners and iron filters, to protect them from sediment buildup and premature failure. As far as we know, these are the only filters that can be installed on the suction side of a pump. We offer 1-inch, 1.5-inch, and 2-inch filter kits. Choosing a size of filter unit depends on how much flow is required. As you can see, each size has its own flow rate. Typically, the most common thought when filtering is that bigger is better. When it comes to filters and separators, choosing the smallest size that will work for the application is actually the best. The smaller the housing, the more centrifugal force, and therefore the more separating action. For an example, a flow rate of 20 GPM, the 1-inch filter would be the most effective at separating the sediment, even though all three sizes would achieve the same flow rate. If you want more flow rate, then the solution is to manifold 2 or more filters in parallel. You can plumb as many filters as you need to get the desired flow rate. The pictures show an example of filters being plumbed parallel to each other.
Yeah, Paul here, just chiming in. When sizing filters, a quick rule of thumb of when to move up from one size up to the next size, or in the case of when to use a manifold, the ideal range would to keep the flow rate in the mid-range of the filter. For example, for a 2-inch filter, as you see in the slide before, they're rated from 18 to 100 gallons per minute. However, if you're running at 100 gallons per minute, you're going to have significant pressure drop at 100 gallons per minute. That's actually about 6 psi, and this reduces the efficiency of the system. So it's recommended that you would manifold 2 filters together, flowing 50 gallons per minute through each filter, and that would reduce the pressure drop through the filters to approximate between 2 and 2.5 psi. And these pressure drop charts are available on our submittal data sheets. If you need them, you can just reach out to Inside Sales.
Thanks, Paul. The 1-inch units come with mounting clamps that screw on the wall, gripping onto the ports of the filter head. The picture on the left shows an example of how the mounting clamps will work if the spigot connection is used instead of the slip connection. The 1-inch filter head ports are a 1-inch slip connection, like I mentioned before, but they also double as an 1.25" spigot connection on the outside. That means you can connect 1.25" slip fittings over the port to connect to 1.25" pipe. In this case, the clamp will need to be clamped on the 1.25" pipe.
Hi, this is Will. I just want to go over kind of what a spigot is for those of you who don't know. So spigot fittings, they use the same OD of the PVC pipe. So essentially, they are the male counterpart to slip connections.
Thanks, Will. The 1.5" and 2-inch models have mounting brackets that can screw onto the wall. As you can see in the picture, the bracket has a screw hole in the middle to use as an anchor so that the bracket can be leveled and held in place while the other screws are put in. All sizes of units have ports that are a slip connection, glue-in ports, that will work with Schedule 40 and 80 PVC pipe. This means that the service pipe can be directly glued into the filter heads. Any adapter could also be used. Now let's take a look at the different designs and features. The Boshart difference is all of our filters come with mounting systems to adhere to the wall, so filters can be attached to the system piping and wall securely and conveniently. Our filter bowls have ribs that make tightening and taking off the bowls very easy. This is a huge help since the bowls only need to be hand tightened to create a seal. The 1-inch standard bowls, not the separator bowls, initially did not have the gripper ribs, but the ribs have since been added to the mold and all production now have the ribs. Others have multiple materials used for the filter screens like poly and stainless. All of our screens are 316 stainless steel, which has a high level of corrosion resistance. Another benefit is that stainless steel is much harder to tear than a plastic screen would be. Each of our filter elements are marked with the mesh size, O-ring identification, and whether they are a regular filter element or a separator element. The F in the picture shows that this element is a regular filter element. The 1-inch units use the same element for both the filter and the separator, so they don't require the marking. Others inkjet their elements, which can wear off with regular use, so changing filter elements in the future is made pretty difficult. Boshart markings are done by dot peening, which is a physical mark that won't wear off. We have added the extra information to make replacing very simple. Here is just a closer picture of the markings on our elements. You can see that for this particular element, the O-ring size is 220, the mesh size is 100, and the element is a regular filter element. Our core has been designed to optimize the filtering area by increasing the amount of open area. More filtering area equals less flow rate loss. You can see the difference in the two pictures. Boshart's filter bowls have more threads on the top of the bowl to get more engagement between the bowl and the head compared to others. Our bowls also have a larger rounded bottom to increase the sediment holding capacity. The Boshart components are also interchangeable with other spin-out filters on the market. We will now take a look at some of our quality assurance practices. The pressure rating for these filters is 150 psi. The quality assurance standard states that they must withstand a minimum burst of 3 times higher than the pressure rating or more to be acceptable. We tested the units and improved the design until we were reaching a burst pressure of 5 to 6 times the pressure rating.
Will here again. Just an interesting note on our testing. During our initial testing, we did find that there were some improvements that could be made. And after we implemented these changes, we saw that we could get pressures up to at least 1,000 psi, which is roughly 7 times over the rating.
Thanks, Will. The instant measurement machine allows us to take images of the product and with that image, quickly and accurately measure the dimensions of that product. The filter heads and element cores are measured to ensure that there will be a proper fit and that the molding is consistent.
Hi, Steve here. I just wanted to let you know that every time the filter heads, the elements, and the bowls are made in an injection molding, we have a QA inspector test the parts on this image dimension machine.
Thanks, Steve. With help from research and development, they created a custom go and no-go gauge to test the slip port dimensions to the ASTM D2466 standard. The short ends of the gauge test the entrance of the socket, and the long ends of the gauge test the bottom of the socket to check that it is the proper taper. To wrap up the presentation, we have included 5 important facts to remember. Keep in mind that separators have more sand holding capacity than the regular filters. All of our filters operate on centrifugal force to separate the sediment from the water. The collected sediment can be easily purged by opening the ball valve on the drain port. All of the filters work very well with very coarse sand to silt. And lastly, it's important to remember not to oversize when selecting a spin-out filter. We will now take the time to answer any questions that came up during the presentation. Steve, Will, Paul, whoever would like to help answer the questions, please feel free. So we do have one here. The question is, what temperature ranges can spin-out filters withstand? Are you making a high temp model?
Will here, I can answer this one. So these filters are rated at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and at this point there is not a plan to make a high temperature model, and that's because that these are typically used as a point of entry filter to protect appliances like your water heater from sediment. So if a filter is needed after the water heater, a high temperature filter with a high temp cartridge could be used. We do offer some of those.
Thank you. We do have another one. Do we offer any pre-filter options that can handle algae?
Paul here. I will try to answer this question. Algae is a tricky element to filter out. That said, there are applications where these spin-down or spin-out filters are used when pumping from lakes, and it can run into some algae. Depending on the weight of that particulate, the spin-out action will not keep it from glazing over onto the mesh. So they can be used, but you're going to have to run into cases where you have to take the filter out and wash it off more frequently. I guess that's the best answer I can give there.
Okay, thank you. There is another one here. I'm having trouble with my filter clogging. What should I do?
Okay, Steve here. That's most likely caused because the filter unit was oversized and the water doesn't have enough centrifugal force to push the heavy sediment to the outside. And if there's lightweight particles in there as well, it won't be pushed to the outside of the bowl from the centrifugal force and could stick to the screen. So again, algae is a perfect example of this, and all you can do is clean it more often.
Thanks, Steve. Another question here is, do we have a chart to show what size mesh to order for different sediments?
To answer that, I believe we do have a chart, was on slide, I don't know the number off the top of my head, that showed coarse sand, fine sand, and what mesh sizes to use with those. So that can be helpful in selecting the proper mesh. And also it gives a conversion I think, on all our data sheets between mesh and micron rating. I believe we actually have set up a chart as well that we could send out to anybody that's interested in that, in addition, after the presentation.
Thanks, Paul. So another question here is, should I purchase the spin-out filter model or the spin-out separator model?
I can answer this one. So that really depends on the amount of sand that enters the system and or how comfortable you are purging the filter. So if you do have lots of sand or don't want to purge as often, then the separator would be a better choice. But the components are interchangeable, so don't worry if you want to change after. For example, you could get the extended bowl for the 1-inch filter and keep the head and element, and that would make it a separator. Or in the 1.5 and 2-inch models, you could change the element to make that a separator as well.
Thanks, Will. So another question is, are there any special gluing instructions?
Paul here, I'll answer that one. For the solvent welding of the filters to your PVC pipe, there's really no special instructions. What I would advise is to use a quality solvent welding solvent, and also the appropriate cleaners and primers. As far as the instructions for using that, you must follow the instructions that are provided from the solvent and cleaner manufacturer.
Thanks, Paul. So another question is, what is the warranty period on these filters?
Paul here again. I'll take that one. The warranty on these filters is our standard 1-year warranty that we provide on all of our products. That said, Boshart always stands behind their products if there is any manufacturing defect.
Thanks, Paul. So there is a question here, is there going to be a sheet sent out with the model series or product codes?
Again, we have product specification sheets that are available. Are they available online at this point? So at this point, yes, the answer is yes. Just reach out to your sales representative and we can supply those. They're all available in PDF that have all the model numbers and the information that you would need.
One question was, are you planning on bringing in any high temp ones?
Will here. We did get this question before, and I'll just reiterate on that. We're not planning on getting any of those, and the reason is because these are typically used as a point of entry filter before the appliances to protect them. So if you do need a filter afterwards, you can get a cartridge type filter with a high temp cartridge with, we offer a string wound with a tin core, so you can use that.
Thanks, Will. And thanks for all the questions. If we didn't get to your question, we can reach out to you after the webinar, but we will just continue with the presentation. So that is the end of it today. You can learn more about the features we offer at Boshart, as well as other useful information on plumbing and water well products by visiting Boshart U. At Boshart U, our goal is to equip you and your team with the knowledge you need to be more successful. We regularly publish new blogs and content that will help you become more comfortable and confident with our products. Be sure to also follow us on social media. Thanks again for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar educational. Check out our website for more product specs and subscribe to our blog to receive new content updates. Enjoy the rest of your day.